Seeing the beast begin its assault, Abyss immediately shouted a warning to her master, Kai, urging him to flee. The large, winged monster drove its sharp beak downward in a powerful strike. However, the village warrior swiftly moved to intercept, meeting the attack with a solid deflection from his stone axe. The tool held firm, parrying the blow and protecting Kai from the initial onslaught. The large bird monster, its initial attack thwarted, turned its head to fix a calm, unsettling gaze upon Kai. The young man observed the creature's reaction, his mind racing. He considered the possibility that the beast, having failed its strike, might simply return to the sky. Internally, he concluded that this was unlikely. He perceived no glimmer of intelligent strategy behind its actions, only a raw, persistent menace. Understanding the inherent difficulty of evading a flying opponent, he knew a deliberate plan was their only recourse. Raising his voice to cut through the tension, he issued the first directive of his strategy to Abyss, instructing her to run toward the large tree for cover. Seeing the beast remain, its predatory focus unbroken, Kai understood that flight was no longer an option. There was no other choice but to fight. A resolve hardened on his face as he prepared himself for the battle. Beside him, the village warrior mirrored this determination, gripping his stone axe tightly and readying his own stance for the impending clash. The moment of planning was over. The time for action had arrived. Kai called out to the village warrior, instructing him to press the attack with his stone axe. The warrior obeyed, lunging forward and swinging his weapon against the monster. However, the strike seemed to have little effect, barely deterring the large creature. Seeing Kai holding his ground against the monstrous bird, Abyss felt a surge of panic. Her concern for his safety overrode all other thoughts. She shouted to him across the chaos, her voice loud and clear, demanding to know why he was not fleeing from the danger. Hearing Abyss's worried shout, Kai turned to reassure her. His expression was calm but firm. He told her not to worry, assuring her that they would be fine. He then gave her a direct order, his voice leaving no room for argument. He instructed Abyss that she must run away. Turning back to the warrior, he urged him to hang on for just a little while longer. The plan was clear. They would ensure Abyss's escape first. With that decided, he declared their own intention to also retreat, rallying them toward their destination. "Now then, Tenohira village," he cried, signaling the start of their tactical withdrawal. The scene shifted to the relative calm of Tenohira village. There, a villager named Enil was singing happily to himself while enjoying a simple roasted yam. The peace was abruptly shattered when Kai rushed in, shouting urgently for Enil's help. "Enil, fire!" Startled by the sudden interruption, Enil choked briefly on his food and demanded to know what was happening. Before Enil could fully comprehend the situation, Kai's eyes fell upon the nearby sack full of yams. An idea sparked in his mind. He quickly emptied the sack of its contents, then wrapped the empty sack around the end of a long stick. His plan clear, he prepared to set the makeshift torch alight. As he finished preparing the first torch, Kai instructed Enil to produce a large quantity of them. When Enil asked what the torches were for, Kai replied with a straightforward and grim purpose: monster extermination. He then stated his intention to return to the island soon and thanked her before departing the village. Without losing any time, Enil immediately set to work gathering materials to fulfill the request. Meanwhile, Kai, carrying the initial torch, swiftly made his way back to the island where the large winged beast and the warrior were locked in their tense stalemate. Upon his return to the island, Kai immediately put his plan into action. He hurled the newly created torch toward the monstrous bird. The attack was well aimed, but the beast reacted swiftly, lunging toward him. Just short of the monster's attack from reaching him, Kai utilized an ability to instantly teleport, vanishing from the island and reappearing safely in Tenohira village. Without a moment's hesitation, he asked Enil for another torch. She, having prepared them as requested, readily handed him a new one, enabling him to rearm instantly for the ongoing battle. While Kai was rearming, the village warrior executed a bold maneuver. He climbed a tree stealthily, using the high ground to launch a surprise attack, leaping onto the monster's back to strike it. At that precise moment, Kai returned to the fray, hurling a second torch at the beast. As he fought, he spoke to himself with newfound determination. He vowed never to run from a fight by himself again. He acknowledged that he had received crucial help, and because of that, he would not try to escape alone. Fueled by this resolve, he pressed the attack, launching a third torch at the monster as he reinforced his commitment to his companions. With full determination, Kai launched the fourth torch. This one found its mark brilliantly, igniting the monster's feathers and causing significant damage. However, the enraged beast reacted instantly. It noticed the source of the new attack and, with a powerful flap of its massive wings, created a concussive blast of air. The force struck Kai directly, stunning him and halting his assault momentarily. The successful attack had come at a cost, leaving him vulnerable. As the stunned Kai struggled to recover, the monster, though injured, began to advance on him once more with clear intent to attack. Kai prepared to teleport away to safety. However, just before he could activate his ability, the smoldering embers on the monster's feathers, ignited by the previous torches, suddenly burst into a full blaze. The creature recoiled in shock and pain, its attention completely diverted by the fire spreading across its body. A wave of relief and satisfaction washed over Kai. The delayed reaction of the fire had been part of his strategy, and he was glad to see the plan work perfectly. Turning to the warrior who had inflicted the wound that made the beast vulnerable, he offered sincere praise for his crucial role in their victory. From a distance, Abyss was seen waiting for Kai. When he approached her, his first question was why she had not run away to safety as instructed. Suddenly, their attention was violently redirected. The monster, still burning and now filled with even greater fury, revealed itself to be alive. Kai was shocked by its resilience. Reacting instantly, he grabbed Abyss's hand and tried to pull her away, urging them to flee. However, Abyss remained motionless, her feet firmly planted. Kai called out to her, confused and concerned about what was happening. It was then that Abyss spoke, offering an apology for not having told him something important sooner. Abyss stood her ground, her expression filled with deep remorse. She confessed that because of her own actions, she had put her master in grave danger. Kai, confused and growing concerned, asked her panickingly what she was talking about. In response, Abyss gently let go of Kai's hands, creating a small space between them. She then made a final, heartfelt plea, asking him not to hate her for what was about to happen next, signaling that she was preparing to reveal a truth she had long kept hidden. In a sudden, brilliant flash of light, Abyss's form underwent a dramatic transformation. She shifted into a powerful, adult version of herself, the intensity of the light briefly blinding Kai. Once the light subsided, she briefly glanced back at him, ensuring he was safe, before returning her full and formidable attention to the monster. As she prepared to unleash a final, devastating attack, she did not yell or chant. Instead, she issued a simple, calm, and absolute command to the creature, telling it to cease living. The moment the command left Abyss's lips, a wave of immense power was unleashed. It struck the monster not as a physical blow, but as an absolute magical decree. The creature's burning form instantly stilled, its fury extinguished along with its life. It collapsed to the ground, defeated not by force, but by an authority it could not resist. The battlefield fell into an abrupt and eerie silence, leaving only the transformed Abyss and a stunned Kai amidst the aftermath. Kai was utterly stunned by the display of power, witnessing such a thing for the first time. He understood that he was seeing a master of magic, a being who created extraordinary power from their own body. Unlike the randomly given blessings some might receive, this was an ability inherited through a legacy, a refined and potent art. This meant, without a doubt, that Abyss was a wizard, yet a thought occurred to him. That was a magical girl transformation, is it not? As Abyss began to explain herself, Kai, still processing the incredible event, cut in with enthusiastic amazement. He told her that the display was awesome, exclaiming that she must be a wizard. Abyss, however, pointedly corrected him. She clarified that while she could indeed use magic, she was not a wizard. Kai, his initial excitement giving way to curiosity, simply asked for confirmation. Abyss then stood before him, her posture wary and vulnerable. She posed the questions that truly mattered to her, setting aside labels to address her deepest fear. She asked him, regardless of who or what she was, if he could find it in his heart not to hate her, and if he would promise to stay with her. Kai immediately assured her that he would never hate her and that he wanted her to stay with him. His acceptance gave her the courage to speak her truth. In response to his comforting words, Abyss began her full confession. She revealed the fundamental nature of her existence, stating plainly that she was not a human. She explained that a long time ago, she was created as a battle doll, an artificial construct designed to imitate a powerful wizard named Abyss from a distant past. Her life was infinite, she continued, sustained not by food but solely by feeding on magic, cementing her identity as something entirely other than human, a tool. Abyss provided the specific terminology for her existence. Her real name, she revealed, was Replicant Abyss. She elaborated that while her body was totally natural in its structure and no different from a human's on the surface, it was artificially created. This confirmed her status as a homunculus or a synthetic human, a being made, not born. The term replicant perfectly defined her as an artificial, man-made life form, explaining the paradox of her human-like appearance and her supernatural origins. Kai processed the revelation, deducing that she had been on the island for hundreds of years. Abyss gently corrected him, revealing she was made over 1,000 years ago but had only awakened 58 years prior, with no memory of the reason. Kai absorbed this, quietly noting that she was far older than him regardless. He connected this to his own knowledge, realizing the term replicant aligned with concepts like homunculus or synthetic human, which logically explained her unusual traits such as not needing food and her perpetually pristine appearance. He simply stated that he understood. Abyss, in turn, cautiously asked him if he was not upset by this truth. Abyss voiced her deepest insecurity, stating that she looked like a demon and was not really a human being. In response, Kai gently reached out and took her hand, looking directly into her eyes. His gesture was one of comfort and connection. He sincerely thanked her for trusting him enough to share her secret, his tone conveying not shock or fear, but gratitude for the vulnerability she had shown him. Kai continued to reassure her, his resolve firm. He stated clearly that he did not find her creepy and that he believed Abyss was beautiful. He vowed never to abandon her, no matter the circumstance, and declared he would not hesitate to risk his own life for her sake, reminding her that she was the one who had saved his life. With a touch of lightheartedness that contrasted with the serious conversation, he internally mused that, above all, having an android girl as a companion was nothing but a reward. Then, shifting to a more practical matter, he gently asked about the specific meaning behind her choice to call him Master. Abyss explained her profound solitude and lack of purpose. She confessed that she could not live alone, as she had no concept of how to live a life of her own choosing. It was for this reason, she revealed, that on the day they met, she had made a decision on a whim. She would let this man be her master. Having confessed this, she then made her deepest plea directly to Kai, her voice filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. She begged him, "Let's live together." Kai finally understood the full weight of her situation. He realized that Abyss, as a battle doll, was not capable of simply living life as you want. Her plea for a master was not about servitude, but about survival. She needed guidance to exist. The realization reminded him of his own past, a previous life where he too had been unable to live properly. He asked if that fundamental lack was the reason she called him master. Abyss apologized for not having explained it properly. Then, with a note of hesitant hope, she asked if it was too late for him to accept the role now. Abyss once again made her plea, staring directly at him as she asked if he would please accept her request to be her master. The intensity of her gaze caused Kai to become slightly embarrassed. Inwardly, he reflected on the situation. He thought that, in a strange way, he had been saved today by the values and perspective he had gained from his previous life, which allowed him to understand and accept her for what she was. Kai reflected deeply on the situation. He realized that without the unique knowledge from his previous life, he would have been unable to understand the concept of a replicant. He admitted to himself that he likely would have been afraid of Abyss and kept his distance. He recognized that she was not an emotionless machine, and he believed that as she learned about the world, she would eventually discover her own desires. His acceptance was based on understanding her potential for growth. He then made a firm declaration, stating that from that day onward, Abyss would be his. Abyss accepted happily, expressing her sincere wish to get along well with Kai. In turn, Kai continued his internal thought process. He vowed that he would live together with her until the day arrived when she could discover her own desires and purpose. Internally, he self-consciously acknowledged that his formal declaration might have been somewhat grandiose. Kai, thrilled with their victory, cheerfully questioned why they were all simply standing around talking. He announced his intention to take the monster bird to Tenohira village to be used as crafting materials. The warrior expressed a joyful agreement. However, its form began to flicker and weaken noticeably. Noticing the change, Kai asked the warrior what was wrong. In response, the warrior's body rapidly shrank, growing smaller and smaller until it condensed into a soft glow and reverted to its original state, a single dormant seed lying on the ground. Staring in shock at the seed, Kai panicked. A cry of despair erupted from him as he screamed that the warrior had died. Kai shook off his initial shock, knowing he needed guidance. He stammered out a plan to ask the knowledgeable Enil for help. The idea quickly grew in his mind. He realized this was also the perfect opportunity to bring the valuable monster materials back to Tenohira village. In a flash of light, he activated his skill and teleported directly to the village square. He arrived to find Enel already there. He was about to open his mouth to urgently explain the situation with the warrior's seed. But she was already approaching, her arms filled with colorful flower petals. Before he could utter a single word, she laughed and tossed the petals into the air, creating a cheerful cascade around his bewildered form. Beaming with pride, she congratulated him. The village, she exclaimed, had finally leveled up. Enel cheered, congratulating Kai once again on the achievement. She explained that reaching a level which was a multiple of 5 was always a special milestone for the village's growth. Seeing his puzzled look, she clarified the trigger. It was because he had brought the crow monster back with him. The system recognized the potential of its meat and beak as new raw materials which contributed the necessary energy for the level up. As she mentioned new features, Kai's attention turned to the village interface materializing in the air. His eyes scanned the text. The settlement had officially reached level 5, its status evolving from a simple camp to an explored village. But it was the final line that caught his breath. The guest feature was now unlocked, finally allowing him to bring other people to this place. Kai's initial alarm was swiftly replaced by a spark of inspiration. The new guest feature seemed to offer a solution to his worries. He immediately declared his intention to bring Abyss to the village right away. Enel clarified the simple process. Holding hands and activating his skill would now transport a guest with him. As she explained, Kai suddenly stammered, the image of the warrior reverting to a seed flooding back to him. Seeing his concern, Enel gently reassured him. She explained that there was nothing to worry about. The warrior had simply taken significant damage and entered a restorative sleep mode to recover. It would eventually return. A wave of relief washed over Kai. He softly apologized for his earlier panic, acknowledging he had been unreasonable. Seeing his spirits lift, Enel suggested he focus on the positive and bring Abyss over for the level 5 celebration. Kai agreed, a new determination in his eyes. This was his chance. He would use this opportunity to properly explain his evolving abilities to Abyss. After Kai explained the situation, Abyss expressed her relief that the warrior would recover. Kai then wondered aloud if the warrior would maintain its powerful form outside of battle, reasoning that such a formidable shape would have prevented its defeat in the first place. He explained that the warrior was not an independent being but a manifestation of his own unique blessing ability. Abyss found this concept strange. From her ancient knowledge, she stated that no such thing as a blessing or a god that granted them existed. This made Kai ponder if the very concept of such divine gifts was unknown 1,000 years ago, in the time Abyss remembered. Abyss, her curiosity piqued by the new village items, asked Kai if he had brought a lot of things from Tenohira. Kai confirmed that he could indeed transport objects, and then shared the bigger news. His ability had been upgraded. He was now permitted to bring other people with him. He extended the invitation directly, asking if she would like to come and see the village for herself. Abyss immediately agreed, her voice bubbling with excitement. As he reached for her hand, Kai softly noted that this would be a profound first for her. She had never once set foot outside the island. With that, he activated his skill, and the two of them vanished, teleporting towards Tenohira village. The familiar surroundings of Tenohira village materialized around them. With a proud smile, Kai presented the settlement to his guest, but the look on Abyss's face was not one of awe or excitement. The moment they arrived, a violent tremor racked her body. Her complexion turned ashen and she struggled to draw breath. She managed to stammer out a warning about the overwhelming lack of magical power before her legs gave way. Kai tightly held the faltering Abyss, his initial pride replaced by sheer panic. Enel rushed to their side, her expression shifting from celebration to grave concern. She stated the immediate, necessary course of action. Abyss needed to leave this place. Her voice was heavy with pity as she observed the magical being's distress in an environment devoid of the energy she needed to survive. Enel quietly noted that this world was not meant for everyone, acknowledging that it was a world suited for Kai, but not for a being like Abyss. She then voiced her primary concern, hoping that Abyss would be all right. Kai, holding his weakened companion, could only nod in grim agreement, silently accepting the painful reality of the situation. The moment they rematerialized on the island, Abyss's eyes snapped open. She immediately stood up on her own, her strength seemingly returned the instant her feet touched the familiar ground. Kai stared, taken aback by her sudden recovery. He carefully asked if she was truly okay. Abyss confirmed she was fine, stating she had merely been surprised. A wry smile touched Kai's lips as he retorted that he was the one who had been truly surprised by her collapse. She then offered an explanation. Her form moved and was sustained purely by magical power. The world they had just left, Tenohira village, held almost none of that essential energy, causing her to falter drastically. Abyss reassured Kai, explaining that while she couldn't move without ambient magic, she hadn't been in any real danger. Her essence was intact, so she was perfectly fine now. Kai considered this, wondering if her need for magic was similar to how other things depended on invisible forces, like radio waves. Despite understanding, he couldn't hide his disappointment. He had been so eager to show her everything they had built in Tenohira village. As evening fell, the day's worries were momentarily forgotten. Kai's eyes lit up with pure, unadulterated joy, his gaze fixed on the plate of food before him. The tantalizing aroma promised a feast, and for a moment, all other thoughts vanished. Kai's eyes lit up with anticipation as he looked at the feast before them. He turned to Abyss, his voice brimming with pure delight, and declared that they finally had a proper meat dish after such a long time. He encouraged her to eat heartily, assuring her that while it was monster meat, Enel personally guaranteed its taste. The meal, seasoned simply with salt they had painstakingly produced from seawater, appeared absolutely perfect to him. He brought his hands together in a sincere gesture of gratitude, giving thanks for the food. Then, he eagerly began to eat, savoring the long-awaited flavors that represented a true milestone in their survival on the island. Kai took a bite of the meat, his expression softening with profound satisfaction. He chewed slowly, savoring a flavor he hadn't experienced in what felt like an age. He noted how the rich taste of the fat spread warmly through his mouth, a simple yet deeply appreciated sensation. He offered a portion to Abyss, but she gently declined. A soft smile graced her features as she explained that seeing him eat so deliciously was enjoyment enough for her. She was content simply to watch. Kai felt a deep gratitude. Thanks to Abyss's help in securing this meal, the food seemed to taste 100 times more delicious. In that moment of quiet contentment, he realized just how much time had passed. 3 full months had gone by since he first arrived on the island. With the monster defeated, Abyss turned to ensure Kai was unharmed. After receiving his confirmation, she surveyed the area, identifying it as the southern region of the island. Kai absorbed this new geographic information. Abyss then elaborated on the island's overall shape, describing it as resembling a gourd. She also pointed out a significant landmark, noting that the large tree they had previously observed was situated here, on the southern side. Abyss, sensing the surrounding flora, remarked on the presence of a bitter fruit nearby. Kai inquired about what kind of fruit she meant. She described it as a plump, emerald green object and directed his attention to a specific tree. Eagerly, Kai went to inspect it, picking one of the fruits for a closer look. Upon examination, he identified it with surprise as an olive. When Abyss asked what an olive was, Kai explained its primary use. It could be pressed to extract oil. He compared it to the hemp seeds they had tried before, which had yielded very little oil. Seeing the potential, he immediately decided to collect some to plant in his village farm, adding it to their growing list of cultivated resources. He instructed the warrior to transport the newly acquired plants back to the village, a task the loyal construct promptly carried out. He noted that he began cultivating tangerines and bananas in both Tenohira village and directly on the island. The bananas, while not particularly sweet, were a reliable, edible size, but their value extended beyond the fruit. The large, water-repellent leaves were repurposed as excellent roofing material and could also be used for steaming dishes. The tangerines, however, were a highlight. They possessed a strong, pleasing balance of sweetness and sourness. As he ate one, he felt a distinct sense of refreshment, leading him to believe the fruit was packed with vitamins. Each new successful cultivation significantly improved their quality of life. Kai observed the olive fruit, noting that it didn't seem like a native species. He theorized aloud that it might be an improved breed, developed by the same ancient civilization that had created Abyss. Abyss, following his train of thought, asked if he wanted to search for anything else to collect. Kai muttered in response, frustrated that he couldn't find enough seeds or samples of any one thing to establish proper cultivation. He then explained the unique principle of his village. Anything he brought into its boundaries would begin to exist there permanently, and the environmental effects of this would manifest quickly. He outlined an ambitious plan. If he were to introduce a large quantity of shellfish and small fish, he might be able to generate an actual sea within the village. When Abyss asked why he would want to create a sea, Kai's answer was twofold. First, it would advance the village's civilization level. But his second reason was more personal. If a sea existed, he could learn to build a boat, a crucial step for his ultimate goal of escaping the island. Abyss asked softly what Kai intended to do once he escaped. Kai's initial response was simple. For now, he just wanted to let his family know he was safe. Internally, he worried that if the island's temple had watchers, even that might be impossible, but his deepest desire was simply to see his loved ones again. A note of sadness entered Abyss's voice as she murmured her understanding that Kai still had a family waiting for him elsewhere. Kai confirmed this, mentioning his sister and father. He then noticed the downcast look on Abyss's face. Quickly, he added that of course she would be coming with him, assuring her that she was included in his plans for the future. He continued, his voice firm and sincere, stating that Abyss was also a family to him. Abyss softly repeated the word, letting its meaning settle. Family, family. A wave of warmth and happiness visibly washed over her, culminating in a bright smile before she stepped forward and embraced him closely. Flustered by the sudden and heartfelt gesture, Kai's face flushed a deep red. In his embarrassment, he muttered a blushing observation about the astonishingly high-level culture of the thousand-years-old ancient civilization. Upon arriving home, a couple of warriors greeted them. The two existing members proudly introduced the third and newest addition to their group. Abyss observed the newcomer with interest, noting that the third seed had also resulted in a small person. Kai confirmed her observation, adding that this time it was a warrior type as well. He then provided an update on their progress, revealing that over the last 3 months, the village had remarkably reached level 77. This significant advancement was the reason he had been granted another 2 seeds of creation, further expanding their community's potential. He contemplated the challenges ahead. Even if he succeeded in creating a sea within the village, he knew it would take a very long time to build a ship robust enough to cross the open ocean. The primary obstacle was the acute shortage of materials, particularly iron, a lack that was deeply frustrating. Before addressing the distant goal of shipbuilding, a more immediate challenge demanded focus. They first had to survive the coming winter. His thoughts were interrupted as he noticed the warriors vying for his attention, striking a pose to show they were ready and waiting for his orders. He thanked them for their dedication, assuring them that their current situation was manageable and that he was counting on their support. Yet, as he looked at them, the underlying issue remained clear in his mind. They still needed more manpower. Resolving to seek counsel, he decided his next step would be to talk things over with Enel. Kai approached Enel, rubbing his hands together somewhat nervously as he made his request for more seeds. Enel was taken aback by the suddenness and his unusually respectful tone. Seeing her hesitation, Kai backtracked, suggesting that if she couldn't provide seeds, perhaps she could simply come to the island instead. Enel firmly stated that she could not do that. She then reminded him of her role, explaining that, as he well knew, she was just a manager of the village system. There was nothing she could do to directly grant him more seeds. Frustrated, Kai brought up his main concern. The village was leveling up too slowly. Enel agreed with his assessment. She pointed out that the current, most pressing need for the village's growth was, after all, livestock. The solution wasn't in simply asking for seeds, but in fulfilling the village's specific requirements. Enel laid out the requirements, suggesting that either horses or cows would be suitable for their needs. She emphasized the benefit, asking rhetorically if it wouldn't be great to have a large workforce. She then specified a target. Obtaining 5 species would be ideal. Kai was taken aback by the high number. Seeing his reaction, Enel provided a more manageable starting point, explaining that they needed at least a pair of each animal to establish a population, as domestication was impossible with just one. Kai agreed with this logic. He then set a crucial parameter. They could not use monsters. There simply had to be some normal, wild animals somewhere on the island. With this goal in mind, he set his sights on a specific region to begin the search, the north side of the island. Kai returned to the island and sought out Abyss, proposing a trip to the northern side to search for potential livestock. Abyss agreed to the plan, confirming that the area was reportedly not too dangerous. With her approval secured, Kai declared the start of their new mission. His goal was clear: to find animals that could be domesticated. In a unified show of support, both Abyss and the warrior raised their arms, echoing his enthusiasm and readying themselves for the hunt. They were running, their goal to explore the north side of the island for livestock. Abyss asked Kai if they would reach the north side soon. Kai replied that they were only halfway there. He then asked if she was tired. Abyss said she wasn't, that it felt good to run like this. She smiled, saying that being with her master was always really fun. Kai simply agreed, a blush on his face. They arrived at the place after the neck of the island. Kai noticed that it was more peaceful than he had expected. Abyss mentioned that the monsters were not approaching because the magical power on the north side was messed up. Kai thought aloud, asking if they moved the base here. Abyss interrupted him, stating that there was no big tree barrier on the north side. She warned that if they migrated, she expected the monsters would come to eat him. Kai sat down, disappointed, noting it wouldn't go smoothly. Suddenly, Abyss stopped Kai from moving forward. He looked past her and saw what had made her stop. Before them was a flock of large creatures that looked like buffaloes. Kai asked Abyss for confirmation if they were monsters. Abyss confirmed they were not, stating that if they were monsters, they wouldn't be that lazy. However, she mentioned that she was not feeling well, as the magical energy in the area was scarce. Kai asked if she could even use magic now. She replied that if it was just a little, then she could do it. Kai then instructed her to use just enough power to stun one of the creatures. She acknowledged the command and began to charge her magical power. Abyss released her magic and it flew toward one of the creatures. The energy impacted with a heavy thud, felling the beast. Kai looked on with a panicked expression, asking Abyss if she had killed it. Abyss stammered in response, saying she wasn't sure herself, since she had only fired at it using moderate power. Kai was about to approach the felled creature when Abyss called out to him, her voice sharp with warning. It turned out they were already surrounded by the rest of the herd. Before Kai could react, one of the creatures charged towards them. In an instant, Abyss pulled him behind her, shielding him with her own body. Abyss immediately fired another blast at the charging creature, while urgently telling Kai to run away. She shouted that she would try to stun them all somehow. Kai agreed, yelling for them to retreat. As Kai turned to run, Abyss fired at another creature, but this time, the beast endured the hit and kept coming. Abyss noted with frustration that it was hard to adjust her magical power to stun without killing. Abyss leaped into the air and fired her magic at two of the creatures. However, just as she landed, Kai saw more creatures already charging directly at her. He realized this was not a good situation. He ran towards Abyss, shouting a warning for her to hold her breath. Just as the creature was about to reach them, Kai immediately shouted, "Tenohira Village!" The word activated their escape, teleporting them away a mere moment before impact. They reappeared safely in their village. Catching his breath, Kai asked Abyss to bear with lack of magical energy. She nodded. He observed that she seemed to be absorbing magical power from her mouth and noted that if she held her breath, she should be fine. Back on the island, the creatures skidded to a halt where their prey had just been. They looked around with irritation, wondering where the two had vanished to. Finding nothing, they eventually gave up and returned to the herd. Kai and Abyss returned to the north side of the island. Kai let out a heavy sigh of relief, voicing his belief that they had managed to get through the ordeal. Abyss pointed into the distance, drawing her master's attention to the grazing herd. Kai observed that the animals were not cows but buffaloes. Noting that the stunned one was still alive, Abyss expressed her relief. A determined grin spread across Kai's face as he shouted in triumph. He then declared he would carry the animal back to the village. Kai successfully teleported all the stunned buffaloes back to Tenohira Village. Enel counted them, noting the total of 1 male and 4 females was a good ratio. She congratulated Kai on fulfilling the quest and informed him she could provide the seeds he requested tomorrow. Kai exclaimed joyfully. He thought to himself that with this, the field range would expand. Soon, beef, cow leather, and dairy products would be produced. He looked back at the village, telling them internally to do their best and develop, since he would do his best as well. Time passed on the island. It was the first spring since Kai had arrived. The season then turned into a blistering summer, which later gave way to autumn. Throughout the changing seasons, Kai, together with Abyss and the warriors, kept working the fields and successfully harvested the plants they had sown. Time kept passing, and the seasons changed. They hunted animals and smoked the meat to prepare. Finally, a hard winter arrived on the island. Kai returned to his dwelling, calling out that he was home. Abyss welcomed him back. She asked him how the fur coat was. He explained happily that it was nice, and that its cold protection was incomparable to a simple hemp garment. He noted that the fur had been tanned by the villagers of Tenohira Village using oil and plant extract. He noted that while he also knew how to tan skin in pieces, it had taken him a while to finish it, and the result couldn't be called luxury. A warrior offered him a cup of warm water, which Kai accepted. He gladly enjoyed the warm cup and the heat provided by the small fireplace. He looked around the house, noting that the house with a hearth had been built unexpectedly quickly with the help of the warriors. As expected, manpower was great. That said, the shelter was finished just in the nick of time. He thought to himself that the cold was already unbearable, even with the monster fur. Above all, he considered the cold at night to be dangerous. He wondered aloud about the winter on this island, questioning if he could survive it. Abyss noticed that Kai was still shivering. She then moved closer to him and sat down, her proximity making him blush. Kai understood why she had moved closer and was touched by her concern. He thanked Abyss, telling her he was glad she was there with him. Abyss replied that she felt the same, expressing that she was glad Kai had come to her and that she was glad he was alive. The two of them sat together, enjoying the comfortable warmth they shared. Meanwhile, in Tenohira village, the villagers kept on with their lives. Enel moved through the settlement, assisting others with various tasks. For a moment, she paused her work and looked up to the sky, a soft smile gracing her features. Enel simply noted that in the outside world, it was about to be spring. Meanwhile, back at the island dwelling, Kai was marking yet another day, passed on a stone tablet. It had been 1 full year since he had come to the island. The time seemed so long, yet also so short. Kai teleported into the village, where Enel immediately congratulated him merrily. She announced that he had finally reached level 10. Kai was surprised by the news. He then noticed a new object and asked what the wooden pile was. Enel explained that it was a new feature. She informed him that the settlement was now officially called the Agricultural Village, and that the function of the village exit to the north was now available. Enel continued her explanation. She stated that if this wooden pile was placed in the real world, the north side of the island would be connected to it. She elaborated that the village had exits in the east, west, north, and south, but until now, exiting always returned a person to the point where the ability was activated. Kai summarized it, realizing that in short, it was a warp point. Enel confirmed this, concluding that by placing a stake on the island, one could return to it via Tenohira village, even if adrift in the ocean. She then mentioned there was also another thing, and presented him with a golden seed of creation. Kai accepted the golden seed, declaring that, for the time being, he would plant it in the best field. He looked at the seed with great interest, examining it carefully. After a moment of contemplation, he expressed a new desire, stating that the next time he had a chance, he would like a job other than being a warrior. A few days later, a pair of ears was seen sprouting from the spot where the seed was planted. Abyss looked at it and asked, "Ears?" Kai simply replied that it seemed like it, and then asked her what she thought about this. Abyss simply stated that they should harvest it immediately. Kai was wowed by her directness and courage. After they cleared away some of the soil, an entire head became visible, and Kai noted with surprise that it was a girl. Just then, the girl's eyes snapped open, and with a burst of energy, she erupted from the soil. The girl burst from the soil with a dramatic cry, announcing herself as the Great Wizard of Hellfire and declaring she was the bomb. She then addressed Kai with a formal, though slightly archaic and mispronounced, greeting. The girl then struck a pose and vanished with a triumphant sound effect. Left in the suddenly quiet field, Kai and Abyss could only stare blankly at the spot where she had been. After a moment, they both deadpanned a flat, unison response. Yeah. The being that had sprouted from the level 10 reward, the golden seed of creation, was now fully formed. Kai observed that it was a Japanese-style girl with fox ears, commenting that her appearance was really unexpected. The girl then called out to Kai, demanding that he give her a cute name. Kai responded, somewhat flatly, noting that her name was apparently not Watakushi. The girl indignantly retorted that Watakushi was simply how she referred to herself. Kai was lost in thought, reflecting on a past confusion. The pronunciation of his name in this world was similar to I in Japanese, and for a while he had mistakenly thought that was his name. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke aloud, declaring the name he had chosen for the girl. Her name was to be Ren. The girl, now named Ren, looked down, quietly testing the sound of her new name on her lips. She then looked up, her expression seeking confirmation as she asked if that was truly her name. Kai nodded, confirming it. He then introduced himself properly, stating his own name was Kai, and gestured to the girl beside him, introducing it as Abyss. Ren's eyes shifted between them, committing the names to memory. She softly repeated the names, affirming the new connections. Kai and Abyss. A wide smile replaced Ren's previously intense expression. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around both Kai and Abyss. She asked them to please take care of her from now on. The scene shifted, showing the passage of time on the island. Life under Kai's care, with the help of Abyss and Ren, had become stable. One day, the three of them stood facing a monstrous threat. As the creature loomed, Ren confidently stepped forward. She instructed Kai and Abyss to stand back, telling them to leave this to her. With a determined focus, she summoned her power. A torrent of hellish flames erupted from her hands. As Ren commanded the flames, the fire did not simply lash out. It coalesced in the air before her, swirling into a massive, roaring spiral of intense heat. A confident smirk played on her lips as she focused the raging vortex. With a final gesture, she launched the colossal fire spiral directly at the monstrous threat. The spell struck its target with devastating force, resulting in a thunderous explosion that lit up the surroundings. The concussive blast and wave of heat washed over Kai and Abyss, who could only stare at the display, their faces etched with pure shock. Kai, his expression a mixture of awe and deep contemplation, slowly turned to Abyss. He asked her if what they had just witnessed was magic. Abyss immediately denied it, clarifying that it was, at the very least, not the kind of magic she understood. When Kai pressed her to explain, she elaborated that true magic was performed by manipulating the mana inherent in the air. Ren, however, had not utilized this world's mana at all. This observation led Kai to a silent, profound realization. He thought to himself that her power was the same as the village's inexplicable nature. He wondered if it was a force that deviated from the laws of this world, concluding that it was a complete mystery. Unaware of their serious discussion, Ren bounded over with a cheerful smile. She asked Kai how her performance was, proudly stating that he would never be cold with her around. Kai, collecting himself, offered her his sincere thanks. The scene transitioned to show the fruits of their collective labor. Thanks to the efforts of Abyss and Ren in hunting down the island's most dangerous monsters, a newfound peace and stability had settled over their small settlement. Kai stood by the shoreline of Tenohira village, which had been officially upgraded to an agricultural village. The sea before them had finally manifested its bounty. Enel gestured toward the water with excitement, calling out to Kai. He announced that, at last, there was seafood in Tenohira village. He concluded, as expected, that only simple collecting could be accomplished there. The critical component for his plans, a ship, had not yet been introduced to their island's development. Suddenly, a determined glint solidified in his eyes. The patient waiting was over. He could not remain idle any longer. He turned and called out to Enel, his voice firm with newfound resolve. He instructed Enel to prepare hemp rope and logs that were both light and strong. He had made a decisive decision. It was time to move forward with their long-contemplated escape plan. The warriors of the village began the arduous task of shipbuilding under Kai's direction. Observing the work, Abyss approached Kai and asked him if he was truly capable of constructing a ship. Kai confirmed it with certainty, explaining that he had tried and tested the process many times before. He elaborated that if they could achieve the necessary buoyancy and stability, They could build an orthodox, squid-shaped raft. Abyss quietly noted the finality of it, observing that Kai was truly going to leave the island. His response was definitive. He stated he could not stay there forever, and more importantly, he expressed his desire to show the outside world to her. Just then, Ren exclaimed with excitement that the ship was completed, a triumph achieved together with the other warriors. Kai happily accepted the finished vessel. Turning to Abyss with a determined smile, he told her it was time to set sail. Abyss, her expression a mixture of resolve and quiet emotion, softly acknowledged his command. With the raft completed, Kai began to outline their voyage plan to his companions. He informed them that, according to a 1,000-year-old map in his memory, there was land to the southwest. Ren, analyzing their prospects, estimated that even with Abyss's wind magic propelling the sail, the journey would still take 11 days. Abyss admitted a key limitation, clarifying that she only knew the terrain of the past and did not know where any current cities were located. Nevertheless, Kai deemed this acceptable for their initial journey. To ensure they had a way back, Kai explained a crucial safety measure. He would put a stake under the big tree on the island, creating an anchor point that would allow him to return in case of an emergency. He planned to pack rations for about 10 days to be safe. The tranquility of their departure preparations was suddenly broken. Abyss, who had been looking out toward the sea, stiffened, her expression shifting to one of alarm. She called out to Kai, her voice tense. She informed him that something was wrong. Her next words confirmed a sudden, unforeseen complication. She told him that a ship was here. Their gazes followed Abyss's warning out to the horizon. There, cutting through the water, was a large and imposing vessel. The design of the ship was unmistakable, marked by symbols they had hoped never to see again. Kai identified it with a single, heavy word. "It's a temple ship," he stated. The arrival of the global religious organization, the very one that had abandoned him, signaled a profound and unwelcome shift in their situation. Kai reacted to the sight of the temple ship with immediate, decisive action. He commanded the warriors to hide their newly built raft behind the large tree, concealing their work. Internally, a fleeting thought crossed his mind. Had they come to rescue him? But he deeply doubted it. Abyss confirmed his suspicions, her voice steady but grim. She explained that the ship only came at this time of spring, and that they had been coming for years, following the same pattern as when Kai himself had been brought to the island. She then turned to him, her question cutting to the heart of the matter. She asked him what he was going to do. She acknowledged that she knew he was looking forward to leaving the island, but the arrival of the ship created a complex and dangerous situation. Seeing the distress on Ren's face, Kai reached out and softly patted her head in a comforting gesture. He gently reassured her, telling her that he would help. He then turned, his demeanor shifting to one of command. He instructed Abyss and Ren to stand by and maintain their position. He declared that he would go alone to investigate the approaching vessel. As he walked toward the makeshift dock, his senses heightened. He stopped, his gaze fixed on the shoreline, and stated with certainty that someone was coming. A tall, imposing figure was seen accompanying a small girl to the edge of the ship's runway. The girl seemed to be begging the figure, her gestures pleading. Her efforts were in vain. The tall figure gave her a firm, unceremonious push, sending her stumbling onto the dock below. From his concealed position, Kai watched the scene unfold. A wave of anger washed over him, his fists clenching instinctively. But he held himself back, mastering his emotions. He told himself, with grim determination, that now was not the time. He should not reveal himself yet. The ship's boarding plank was immediately raised, stranding the girl alone. The young girl stood on the dock, watching helplessly as the ship sailed away into the distance. She remained there, motionless, until the vessel had completely disappeared over the horizon. Only then did Kai emerge from his concealment and approach her. He offered a calm, neutral greeting to the frightened child. He acknowledged her ordeal, telling her she had done good work to hold out on the long trip. The girl, overwhelmed and scared, looked up at the stranger. Her voice was small and trembling as she asked the fundamental questions burning in her mind. "Where is this?" she whispered. "Who are you?" Kai met her gaze and gave a simple, reassuring promise. He said he would tell her more about that. The girl, introduced as Kaede, looked up at Kai. Her face fell as the reality of her situation sank in. Her voice was small and laced with despair as she asked for confirmation of her grim fate, wondering if she truly could not go home. Kai looked down at the frightened girl, his expression calm but firm as he delivered the difficult news. He told her that, for the time being, she would be living on this island. Just as he was about to offer further explanation, he noticed one of Kaede's small toys floating in the water near the dock. Leaning over to retrieve it for her, he lost his balance. With a comical splash, Kai tumbled into the sea, abruptly cutting short the solemn moment. Kai returned to the dock, having retrieved the small toy. He handed it to Kaede, who referred to it as Gomo. He then addressed her earlier question, his tone softer now. He told her that going home was impossible for now, but he added a firm promise that he would do something about it later. Just then, Ren rushed onto the scene, physically held back by Abyss, who was trying to restrain her. Ren called out to Kai, her voice laced with agitation. Kai acknowledged her and calmly reminded her that he had told her to wait. Ren, barely containing her anger, exclaimed that she had been watching. She demanded to know what the suspicious people were and if she should have roasted them whole. Kai replied firmly that such an action was unacceptable. He added, almost as a pragmatic afterthought, that she would need to leave the island to do that in the first place. Abyss, still holding Ren back, quietly wondered to herself what he meant by that cryptic statement. Kai's expression grew resolute as he looked from the new child, Kaede, back toward the horizon where the temple ship had vanished. He made a monumental decision. He declared that as long as the Fakli religion continued to use the island as a dumping ground for abandoned children, their planned island escape would be canceled for the time being. He then turned to his companions, his voice filled with a new sense of purpose. He stated that he would not let these children die, he would rescue them. Abyss, hearing his declaration, showed no surprise. She simply stated that she had thought he would say that. She then asked him what he was going to do, ready to follow his lead in this new mission. Later, Kai and the others gathered to learn more about the new arrival. Kaede confirmed that she had come from a town with a large castle called Godii. She quietly affirmed this with a soft "en." Kai murmured to himself that it was a city he didn't know, pondering where it could be. This information led him to a grim deduction. He theorized that the island was not just his personal prison, but was likely used as a Nizab global organization known as the Temple. He noted a key piece of evidence. The shape of the holy seal on Kaede was the same as the one he himself bore. He then turned to Kaede, his tone gentle but probing. He observed that she was in the middle of a blessing ceremony, wasn't she? He then asked her, his voice softening further, if she would like to have a proper blessing ceremony later. Kaede looked down, her expression deeply troubled. She hesitantly asked Kai if it was truly all right, confessing in a small voice that she had received the power of an evil god. Kai acknowledged her confession calmly, confirming that she had. However, he immediately reframed the situation for her. He explained that it was thanks to a similar power that he was able to survive on the island himself. He offered her a new perspective, challenging the doctrine she had been taught. He gently stated that not all the teachings of Farleyism were correct. The power itself was not inherently good or evil. He then posed a fundamental question to her, shifting the focus from the nature of the power to its use. He asked her what she wanted to do, emphasizing that it was up to her how she used her blessing. Kaede absorbed his words, a new thought dawning on her. She repeated the concept to herself, realizing the freedom and responsibility it implied. She could decide what she wanted to do. Back at the base, Kaede was surprised to see the warriors who greeted her. She looked at the strange creatures and asked Kai what they were. Kai explained that they were part of his blessings, manifestations of his own power. He then turned and instructed the warriors that they needed to work on the field they had previously planned to abandon. As Kai directed the work, Kaede watched him. Her gaze held a touch of sadness and understanding. She then voiced a soft, heartfelt question, almost to herself. She wondered if Kai, who seemed so powerful and in command, ever felt lonely. From behind Kaede, Abyss appeared and softly answered the girl's earlier question. She confirmed that Kai was probably lonely. She revealed that he had a family he wanted to meet, and that when he first came to the island, he would sometimes just stare at the ocean. However, Abyss added a somber note of reality. She stated that even if he waited, he would not get picked up. She continued, sharing her perception of their leader. She believed that Kai was doing his best to be strong in front of them. Kaede listened intently, her gaze falling to the toys in her hands. She muttered the words, "Mama and Papa," softly to herself. Then, her expression shifted, hardening into a look of firm determination, as if she had come to an important decision. Kai stood formally in front of Kaede, dressed in special ceremonial attire as he prepared to conduct the blessing ceremony. Ren observed the scene and playfully questioned his unusual getup. Kai defended his choice, stating that it was a once-in-a-lifetime occasion. He then addressed Kaede, reminding her of the name he had just taught her. Kaede took a deep breath to steady herself. She focused and muttered the name, Alamira. A wave of understanding seemed to pass through her, a revelation about her own power. Immediately, she looked at Kai and asked with newfound excitement if she could try it out. He gave his permission. She then placed both of her toys on the table, an action that left Kai visibly confused about her intentions. Kaede focused intently on the two toys she had placed on the table. She activated her unique ability, Temporary Life. A soft, otherworldly glow enveloped the inanimate objects. To Kai's astonishment, the toys began to twitch and then move of their own volition. One of the newly animated toys turned to Kaede and offered a cheerful greeting. The other, displaying immediate concern, asked her if she was okay and if she had caught a cold, its tiny voice filled with worry. Kaede and Ren watched the animated toys with a mix of fascination and contemplation. Meanwhile, Abyss observed that the toy had moved, and Kai noted with surprise that it also talked. Internally, Kai pondered this development. He thought to himself that the ability granted by a blessing should be similar for every god who bestowed it. Yet, the same Alamira blessing had given Kaede a power completely different from his own. He found it truly mysterious. Kaede then called out to him, pulling him from his thoughts. She declared that she would help him with the work. Kai looked down at her, his expression softening. He happily agreed, patting her head gently as he told her he was counting on her. With that declaration, a period of peaceful routine began. 3 months passed, during which Kaede gradually adapted to the rhythms and demands of life on the island. The initial fear and confusion faded, replaced by a sense of belonging within the small community. The seasons turned, and the lush greenery of the island deepened under the warm, bright sun. The gentle spring gave way to the vibrant and energetic arrival of early summer. With Kaede now settled into the community, Kai turned his attention back to a pressing need. He announced that in order to obtain materials not available on the island, he and Abyss would set out to sea, seeking a city he hadn't seen yet. Since the safety of their original raft could not be guaranteed for a long voyage, he made a practical decision. He requested that Ren and Kaede stay behind to look after their home. The final panel showed Kai and Abyss on the shore, preparing their vessel. They were embarking on a new journey, not to escape, but to gather resources for their growing community. His world had been reduced to a single, unbroken line. A character gazed out, observing that no matter where he looked, all he could see was a straight line across the horizon. A moment of reflection followed. He knew that escaping the island would have been an unthinkable, impossible task. If it hadn't been for Abyss's unique GPS-like ability, this journey could never have begun. Finally, a sobering thought solidified his resolve. With a sense of grim certainty, he concluded that it was the right choice, the necessary choice, to leave the young Kaede behind. In a flashback, Ren questioned the decision, asking why she was the one who had to take care of the house. She protested, declaring that she would go with Kai. Kai reasoned with her, his voice calm but firm. He explained that the raft could not carry 4 people aboard. He emphasized that he did not know what kind of dangers they might face on the voyage. He further elaborated on the necessity of their companions. Abyss was needed for her unique abilities in reading the map and determining the wind direction. Therefore, by a simple process of elimination, the only one who could stay behind to take care of Kaede was Ren. Faced with this inescapable logic, Ren finally relented, her shoulders slumping in a resigned sigh. Returning to the present, the scene focused on the island. Kaede was diligently tending to her duties, watering the crops that sustained them. Ren approached, seeing the child at work. In an attempt to lighten the mood, she asked Kaede if she wanted to play. Kaede, however, remained focused on her task. She declined the offer, stating she would play later, after she had finished her work. Ren, slightly puzzled, gestured towards their well-stocked supplies. She questioned the necessity of the labor, pointing out that Kai had left behind a significant amount of food, tons of taters, smoked meat, and a simple fish pen full of provisions. Kaede continued her labor. She voiced a memory, recalling that Kai had expressed he could not always rely on Tenohira village. Therefore, she explained, the fields on their island still required maintenance to prepare for any potential emergency. The 2 smaller creatures, Gomo and Mur, then told Ren not to worry and that they could play together later. Following this, Kaede began assigning tasks. She instructed Ren and the others to draw water. She then called out to Gomo and Mur, directing them to please harvest the beans. The scene concluded with the focused sounds of their work beginning. Ren observed her own reflection in the water. She voiced a simple, inherent desire, stating softly that she had just wanted to have fun immediately after being born. A small warrior creature beside her seemed to communicate with her, its presence a quiet comfort. She acknowledged its unspoken reminder, confirming aloud that she knew she had to take care of the island. Ren thought to herself, perplexed by her own low spirits. For some reason, she found she could not keep her spirit up. Internally, she asked herself a quiet, plaintive question, wondering when Kai would come home. Suddenly, her introspection was shattered. Her attention was snapped away from her thoughts as she noticed something was wrong in her surroundings. Her posture shifted from melancholy to immediate alertness. One of Keed's toys suddenly flopped over. Observing this, the child understood its nature. She knew it could not move for a long enough time. Just then, her attention was captured by a weird sound from elsewhere. She looked around, her expression shifting to curiosity and concern as she wondered aloud what the noise was. This prompted a memory. Speaking of which, she recalled, there used to be large, dangerous creatures on this island. But, she reassured herself, Kai and the others had said they hunted them all down. Kaede surveyed her immediate surroundings with a firm belief, asserting aloud that there shouldn't be any monsters in that specific area. This declaration was immediately undercut by a distinct, rushing sound, whoosh, that indicated a sudden movement or presence directly behind her. Kaede slowly turned her head to look over her shoulder. Her eyes widened, her face instantly paling with horror. Without another word, she spun around and started running, her small form fleeing from the unseen threat. The source of the threat was revealed. A large bird monster was diving directly towards the child, Ka. Terrified, she cried out for the absent Kai, screaming his name in a desperate plea for help. Meanwhile, in a separate scene far out at sea, the character Abyss was seen utilizing her abilities. A powerful gust of wind, commanded by her, filled the sail of their raft, propelling the vessel forward on its journey. Kai expressed excitement that they had managed to break free from the powerful ocean current. He turned and praised Abyss for her effective use of magic, and Abyss responded with humility, stating that this defensive application was all she could do. She clarified her nature, defining herself as merely a combat replicant. However, she elaborated, since she was lacking in core battle functions, this supportive role was how she was forced to utilize her magic. She provided a direct comparison, stating that, in terms of fighting, Ren was stronger than her. Faced with this blunt and logical self-assessment, Kai could only sweat drop, a visual sign of mild exasperation, and simply agree with her conclusion. The scene shifted back to the island, where Ren arrived just in the nick of time. She intercepted the diving monster, delivering a powerful punch that connected before the creature could reach Kaede. Without a hint of mercy, she followed through, slamming the beast forcefully into the ground. Immediately, without pause, she cast her magic. A surge of fire erupted from her, engulfing the monster and decisively eliminating the threat. Following the confrontation, Ren landed and struck a dramatic pose. She first asked if Kaede was okay, then proclaimed her title aloud, announcing herself as the Great Wizard of Hellfire. Kaede, visibly overwhelmed by the ordeal, began to cry. She swiftly ran to Ren and hugged her tightly. Ren looked down at the crying child clinging to her. She spoke in a gentle, chiding tone, telling her not to cry. She then moved to offer comfort, assuring Kaede that she would always be with her. Later, Ren gave Kaede a ride on her back. Kaede noted aloud that it was the second time she had ridden this way. Ren responded with a soft, somewhat self-conscious laugh. Kaede then offered an apology, her voice tinged with regret. She thinks she did not put her best effort. As it is, she wonders if Kai will not come back. A heavy, dreadful question formed in Ren's mind, voicing her deepest fear, that Kai might not come back. The devastating implication followed, that she might not be able to meet him anymore. The thought was so overwhelming that her legs gave way beneath her. The sudden collapse forced Kaede, who was on her back, to drop onto her own feet. The child, now standing, immediately turned to check on Ren with concern, but Ren was lost in her despair, crying out in denial against the painful thought. "No way," she uttered, rejecting the possibility. Such a thing. Ren cried, openly expressing her loneliness without him. She stated that she did not want to think about the painful possibility of his absence. Seeing Ren's renewed distress, Kaede quickly apologized. The child recognized her misstep, admitting that she had said the wrong things. The child, Kaede, noticed the character Ren's profound distress. She moved to console her, first stating in a reassuring tone that it was all right now. She then asserted a hopeful belief, insisting that Kai would surely come back. She proposed that they wait for him together. In response, Ren was overcome, letting out a choked sob as her emotions overwhelmed her. Witnessing this scene of sorrow, the small warrior creatures gathered around. Seeing their caretakers in a state of sadness, they seemed to communicate silently amongst themselves, formulating a plan to alleviate the loneliness on the island. That night, Kaede awoke from her sleep. She turned to Ren and asked in a hushed tone if she had heard a peculiar noise. Driven by curiosity, Kaede then slowly made her way outside. There she witnessed a strange sight. A large group of the warrior creatures had planted themselves firmly into the soil, standing motionless in the moonlight. More and more of the small warrior creatures planted themselves into the soil across the area. Observing this unusual behavior, Kaede turned to Ren and asked if it was some kind of ritual. Ren offered reassurance, telling the child not to worry. She calmly explained that this was simply the way the warriors increased their numbers. Kaede reacted with surprise, asking with a shocked expression if that was truly the case. Ren confirmed it, stating that Kaede would see the results for herself in a few days. Several days passed. Kaede diligently watered the growing plants. which became progressively larger under her care. When the results finally manifested, she was shocked to see that there were truly more of them. A large number of new, fully formed warrior creatures stood before her. Ren explained the process, stating that when Kai had given the warriors permission to breed, they had begun planting the seeds themselves. She clarified that this was the way their kind multiplied. Despite the visual evidence and the explanation, Kaede remained slightly skeptical, quietly questioning the bizarre method and wondering if they had really planted themselves. One of the small warrior creatures seemed to gesture towards both Kide and Ren. Kaede turned to Ren, seeking clarification on its meaning. Ren offered an explanation, interpreting the gesture. She stated that since there were more of the warriors now, she was not that lonely anymore. She delivered this admission somewhat shyly. In response, Kaede gently picked up one of the warriors and hugged it. She thanked the small creature aloud. Internally, she solidified a hopeful resolve, thinking that they would all be waiting for Kai's safe return. Kai, gazing at the horizon, saw a distinct shape forming. He alerted the others, stating that he could now see it. It was the land. Abyss confirmed the sighting, aligning it with their navigational data. She noted that the landmass appeared just as it was depicted on the topographical map. Kai then expressed his physical discomfort, complaining that his joints were all becoming stiff from the long and constrained voyage. Kai presented a logistical concern, reflecting that performing certain exercises back on Tenohira village was one thing, but here, by the time he returned to their original ship, its coordinates would have changed due to drift, causing him to fall into the sea. He thus decided their best course was to come ashore for now. He then posed a new question to Abyss, asking if there was any large river in the area around them. He added that such a feature was usually where one could find a city. Abyss responded thoughtfully, indicating she was consulting her knowledge or maps. Abyss pointed in a specific direction, stating that there should be a river located that way. She informed the group that it would normally take 3 days on foot to reach it. Kai considered this. 3 days of walking was a significant trek, but he concluded it was still better than being confined on the raft. However, he expressed concern that they could not let Kaede and the others wait for them for too long. They needed to get to the city quickly. He then turned to his companions, verifying that everyone was okay. Upon receiving their confirmation, he suggested they increase their pace a little bit. Hope you enjoyed the recap. Smash that like button if you did, and subscribe for more. See you next time!